Welcome to Householders, a conversation about American life as Zen practice. I'm Inga Annie Wade.
And I'm Kyosaku John Mitchell, and we're lay members of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center. So I have continued to work with something maybe more, let's say, more embodied, to use the hip language, than just pure non-thinking as the essence of Zen practice for the past week. As this way of relating to my movement practice as the main thing, like I was talking about last week, has continued to settle in. And as it has a way of doing, the world has given me plenty of real world tests, kids sleeping terribly, the normal stresses and strains. And I just continue going through life feeling like breathing and standing up straight is really like the entire, like, let's say breathing, standing up straight, and being nice are like really the entire secret of the entire universe. And there's nothing more to it than that. And that really everything else about formal practice is kind of just about deprogramming doing anything else other than those things. Deprogramming the things that make me hunch over, deprogramming the things that make me breathe shallowly, deprogramming the things that make me be mean to people. And there's a way in which just sort of standing up straight, breathing correctly, and being nice feels like a shortcut. You could just do those things and then that would be that. But there's just so many reflexes involved in not doing that. And so there is a lot more work to do in a sense. But keeping those very simple and obvious goals in mind as the goals feels like it frees me from this whole like getting enlightened so that I can be a good person kind of way. I mean, not that I'm particularly subject to that, but I feel like it's endemic in our world. And really, it kind of just all amounts to a word rather than enlightenment. I would probably posit health as the word that, just to not limit the understanding of health to the medical, biological sense in which our society typically frames it, but like to actually have a holistic, inclusive definition of health, being healthy. That does really center physical health and emotional health as like the key, but really the sign of full health is also related to behavior and ethics and treating people kindly and compassionately. And so the goal is just to be healthy, and keeping that in mind makes it seem like so much more grounded and practical than some sort of, ethereal, magical, spiritual thing. And that's where I'm coming from these days. And I feel like you think about health in ways that I might not have to or get to very often. I wonder what you think of this vocabulary.
No, I actually like really agree with you. I can think of it in terms of you don't really notice it when you do have really good health, but you notice it when you don't.
Right.
And it just to like kind of contrast, just because I've noticed when there are weeks or something where I don't want to say falling off the bandwagon, but falling off the bandwagon. And the difference in physical and mental health that accompanies my lack of sitting straight and breathing correctly and being in the moment and meditation, it really changes everything. Like it almost just feels like if I don't concentrate and have a good mental outlook on things, based in, like you were saying, that meditation really is just a way to do that, really like focus in on that and make that your sort of primary focus, I guess. If that doesn't happen, then I'm just like, I feel like my mind is kind of just like a bunch of commercials.
Whoa.
Or
that's very evocative.
Yeah, and it's like I won't really notice but then my joints will be hurting really bad. I'll do things that like aren't, that aren't like good for me physically. Um and then like things move so quickly, it's almost like you get sucked up into it, and then you can no longer like find time to refocus. So like the further you are away from your focus, I don't know why I keep calling it that, but
Mm.
the harder it is to get back on that, like, because it just feels, you still feel so like flustered with all the stimulation or things going on, that you're like, adding one more thing on top of that sounds horrible, even if you
Mm.
know that it's going to fix it.
Mm. Mm. I'm really interested in your choice of the word focus, because I think that does really describe what this word health is providing for me. I don't think it's like a necessary way of seeing it, but I think in previous recent phases or periods or moods or whatever I was going through, a lot of the stuff that contributes to health in this holistic sense has felt very compartmentalized to me in different places. Like I've got my Zen practice over here, and my diet and my exercise and my relationships and my career and all of these different buckets
Mm-hmm.
of do that I have to take care of. They're like all leaky buckets, and I have to run around to all the different buckets, like refilling the bucket or plugging the leaks or whatever. And seeing it all as contributing to this idea of health, we can maybe define health in a more rigorous way if we want to, but just to use that lens, that view of my life, does bring focus, because they're all related to it.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having to see it all as different stuff to handle in different ways, maybe it's that I can better prioritize or assess what I really need to do now,
Yeah.
because it's all contributing to health in one way or another. And I may have sort of ideas about which one matters that doesn't actually relate to what the healthy thing to respond to now is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. It's like, if you get stuck in your head with all the commercials,
Mhm.
then you're not gonna know, like, if you need to go stretch, or if you need to go exercise, or why you're in a bad mood, or whether you need to define why you're in a bad mood or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Even because sometimes you can be in a bad mood, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think you can be in a bad mood and still be in a good place.
Mm-hmm. Sure, it has to
And
be okay because it's a mood. It's like the
yeah,
weather. It just
right,
happens.
right. But I think there's a difference between like being in a bad mood, I'm like, I'm in a bad mood, and eventually go away and then we'll be fine. And then being in a bad mood and being like, I have no idea what's going on. I feel completely overwhelmed with this bad mood, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to get rid of it, because in that mindset you're always like thinking about how to get rid of it. Whereas in a
Yeah.
better mindset, you're just going to think, well, I'll just let this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does, meditation in general really does help you notice these things and prioritize them, and learn to deal with them in a more productive way. And that can really go for both physical health and mental health, because I'll know, I mean, I meditation has been a huge contributor in like reducing the amount of pain.
Mm.
But the thing is it never went away. I never like was like, now I don't feel pain. That would be weird, and I don't think that would be helpful even. So
Mm-hmm.
I still feel pain, but when I'm stressed out, it hurts like so much more. If I'm not like, regularly doing things that help me relieve stress, and help me just be here and have a be calm and everything. I'm talking mainly about meditation, exercise, what you eat, sleeping, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't do those regularly, then the pain just shoots up,
Mm-hmm.
and gets like unmanageable. But it's always there. It's always like okay, like I feel you, and we'll do the things appropriately to help that. And it's never going to go away, and that's okay, but we got to keep it like contained, or keep it like happy. I don't know.
Mm.
And I can't really do that if I'm under too much stress, because um eventually, like I think when you're under too much stress, you eventually stop doing some of the things that helped you to begin with.
Yeah. Stress is a
um
positive feedback loop.
yes, and I think that meditation can help you beat that positive feedback loop,
Mm-hmm.
where you could just be like, okay, I know that I don't want to meditate right now, or I don't want to exercise, but I'm going to anyway, because I know that that's what's going to help me.
Mm. This is almost a way of maybe explaining in much more grounded everyday terms this Zen idea that I think people find really counterintuitive, that Zazen sitting practice isn't goal oriented. And maybe you could explain it like succinctly this way: like, you don't sit Zazen in order to change your state. You sit
Mm-hmm.
Zazen to have the perspective, the holistic, healthy perspective on your state as it is. And you
Yeah.
get used to seeing your life from that perspective. And it's not that Zazen heals you. It's that you can't get healthy without being able to see all of the components of your life as integrated in terms of your health. So
Yeah.
you figure out what to do. You may figure out what to do while you're sitting there. You may figure out what to do later. Figuring out what to do is a separate process. Seeing it all as coming down to health is the behavior of Zazen.
The perspective is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that that's probably the single most important thing in anybody's life is health,
Mm-hmm.
because it affects everything else, and you can't separate the two.
Yeah.
You can't, be doing bad mentally and perform your best at work, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't be doing bad physically and perform your best in your relationships. it it's I mean, I guess you can, but like that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that Zazen's going to fix your physical problems. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to have a disease or something just because you do Zazen, but it does help you with that perspective of what that disease means for you, how to manage it. Well, it doesn't teach you how to manage it, but you then find the perspective that opens your mind to how to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Or
And
even on a lower down level than that, I think you see how many different, you see components of things that seemed like whole, simple, clear things. You see that they break down to even simpler, smaller, more actionable things, like my leg hurts, and and what how does my leg hurt? It hurts over here. Is it tighter? Is it loose? Is it sharp, or is it dull? That the just the kind of awareness that arises there helps you break down the problem, and that makes one impossible to solve problem into a number or a series of easier to solve problems. If you must think about it as this practical step-by-step problem fixing thing.
yeah, yeah, I could see that on a very practical level, just bringing awareness to the problem as it really is,
Mm-hmm.
versus just an annoyance of something that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Right. Because not wanting to deal with it is just a whole nother problem. And
Yeah.
Zazen, as this open-ended thing, doesn't give you the opportunity to go do something else when something's coming up that you don't want to deal with. And neither does life, really. That's kind of the secret, is like avoiding things isn't healthy because you can't avoid them. Like it's going to come around eventually. And like, the thing you were saying, that sort of zero sum thing you were saying about like, you can't be stressed out. You can't have like a psychological breakdown and still perform perfectly at work. And, like work takes from
Yeah.
relationships and vice versa. And, like it has to come out of something. It has to come out somewhere. Like, you're a finite system.
It's a way to like help you confront all of the things that you may or may not have even known about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think it's like what you would expect from that is that you're sitting down and that you're just all these thoughts are coming through your head and you're just, oh, I never realized this thing and this thing. But that's not really how it works.
Yeah.
In fact, it doesn't really seem like anything's happening while you're meditating.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I think that's the point. The awareness, it's really like practice. And the awareness comes, you notice the difference afterwards.
Hmm.
A lot of the time.
The way I would put it, I think, is that what's happening while you're sitting isn't happening to the thing that's worried about whether something's happening or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
Like there is just a habitual checking process that happens in consciousness, whatever that is. And it's checking and checking and checking and whatever, that's fine. There's a lot more going on than that. And it's always happening. And so it's the way that I would express the exact same thing you just said is just that like the cognitive effects come later in the moment of perspective on something that has changed. You know, the like all number of memories and thoughts and anxieties and what have you might arise in your mind on the cushion, and you deal with those as they arise as those things, as thoughts and memories and anxieties. But it's next time you're in the situation, maybe not the next time, but like future iterations of that situation that really are happening to you. That's when the perspective shift can be noticed. And you know, you don't necessarily notice it one time either. You may notice it over many times, many months, many years. But there's no question to me that the perspective becomes familiar. And it isn't necessarily familiar at the beginning, or it's not even necessarily there all the time. It's just that, you know, this is what sit still enough long enough means, which is like our, you know, practically our new motto at this point as a Sangha. The familiarity of that perspective is really the goal, if there could be said to be one, because when you can feel it, it isn't an effort anymore, because it's there. It's just the perspective of health. It's you don't have to. I mean, the thing that's counterintuitive now is like you don't have to be all the way healthy to have a healthy perspective.
Yeah.
Right. And like, you're never all the way healthy. And like, I want to be very clear about what I'm talking about and what I'm not talking about when I talk about health, because like in our default culture, you might position health in opposition to like death. Like health is avoiding death to, you know, materialistic culture, society. Like you stay healthy to avoid dying, and that's not healthy, because dying is life. So like that's not what I mean. It's not that when you get sick, like in medical terms, you are out of health. You have a new health challenge, but it isn't like a failure of your, you know, effort to be healthy, to get sick in a way that matters. It's not like you can say, well, I'm being punished, you know, for not doing a good job. Like that's not what illness is.
No, I mean, I think that's something in the very beginning of my illness that I kind of blamed myself for. Because I had not like taken my medication in the very beginning, because I was being told by like different sources that I could probably just like eat healthier and do all this holistic stuff and it would go away. And that didn't work. I mean, at all. Not to say that those things aren't helpful. I think that everything has to come together in order, you know, for you to have your health. Like it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
But you can't if you're seriously ill, you can't just rely on, you know, the eating good and sleeping good. But,
right.
But anyways, I blamed myself, because I was like, oh well, I should have taken the medicine. Like it's my fault that I'm sick. But that is just not like a very good perspective to have. because even now, where I think that like even I will overcome some dimensions of my illness, and then more things will be tacked on. But I don't really consider myself sick. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I am unwell. I'm just a person with disabilities, and those aren't bad things anymore. They're not things that necessarily need to be fixed
Mm-hmm.
per se. I mean, I don't wouldn't want them to get out of hand or anything like that. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would say I was unwell. But um, the fact of the matter is, you can be sick in the terms of maybe just how we think of it. Like you can have an illness and still be well. You could have a mental illness and still be well. uh Generally a lot of times mental illnesses don't like get better, they don't like resolve themselves. Like sometimes they do, but usually they weren't mental illnesses to begin with if like you just somehow magically get better from them. But you do learn how to be well with that illness,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a difference.
Yeah, I mean, when we get into word stuff, not just you and me, but like whenever I get into word stuff, and realize that there's more to certain words that we use all the time than I think people conventionally realize, like the way we're breaking open health right now.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think about all the ways that the word is used and see if any of them reveal something more interesting than the conventional understanding. And like, I realize that we do use healthy to describe something more psychological than than the conventional sort of medical definition. Like, that's a healthy attitude is a very conventional phrase. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I I wonder how disciplined people are in deploying the word healthy that way, because looking at this the way we are looking at it, you'd have to be very careful, rigorous, thoughtful about whether a perspective is healthy or not, because it's something that you would need in a situation like you're describing, where like you're having a hard time physically, but you can still adopt, and maybe that's even too careless, like you can still maintain, you can still create a healthy posture within that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And to say to use like positive thinking affirmations and like other sort of to trick yourself into thinking it's okay, like that isn't healthy. And people might say to you, like if you just say something like, I just take it, it's some cliche that people say when they're having a hard time, like just taking it one step at a time, or like whatever sort of conversational thing you might say, somebody might
Mm-hmm.
respond to that like, well, that's a healthy attitude. But like, is it really coming from that healthy place? And and you are describing what feels to me like a very healthy process of adjusting to the reality of your life and your body, but with the sort of inclusion of wisdom, like this is the way it is, it's not going to go away, it's not that that's okay, but that is the way it is, and that has to be okay.
Yeah.
And like that is what I mean when I say that is a healthy response. And I, it's interesting that people conventionally do say that things are healthy in a much subtler way, healthy or unhealthy, in a much subtler way than like a doctor might say.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem, I mean, maybe this is the problem with health in the conventional sense too, like diet and exercise, and we have such, without getting into statistics that I don't have like committed to memory, like heart problems and obesity and even like
Yeah.
addiction, like there are lots of medical measures by which we don't live in a healthy society by and large, and the solutions to that are so hard to find. You can't just like incentivize people in like boring economic ways to like eat better and exercise more and stuff like that, because it's just, there's just so much more going on than that. And you know, health isn't an instinct that people are raised to have in our society. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
that's the angle here. It's like we people who do something like this, like Zen, have a Zen Sangha of people of, as just one example, you know, any number of kind of religious communities or other, or even sports teams and gym memberships and you know, like other things people do to support each other to get healthy. Like there's all kinds of ways that people do that. Like you have to assemble it yourself and you have to
Mm-hmm.
do it voluntarily. And that's good. Like people should be able to find their own way to health. But it's not like there was, like we talk about all the time, it's not like there was some sort of paved path for us in our childhoods to finding our way to health. And we found it because of resources that we had, you know, ranging from just sort of, you know, schooling and material and family and material support that we had to like miraculous occurrences, like, you know, your you know, financial arrangements with your therapist, and like my, you know, weird teacher who had no business being a teacher at my high school given his weird background. You know, like we got lucky that we learned how to find health. And
Yeah.
there's something almost political coming up for me now about that. Like it shouldn't be that way. It should be built into
It do-
society.
it certainly doesn't seem that our society really prioritizes health, and I think there's a lot of conflicting factors when it comes to that. Like people are like, you know, blaming people who are overweight because, oh, well, you should have better self-control. It's like, well, everything, like, you know, junk food is cheaper than regular food. It's more convenient than healthy food. It's like making those decisions, it's we don't have as much control over those things as, you know, one would think. And I think also meditation does, you know, help you sift through all the messages that
Hmm.
you're getting every day. Because yeah, I mean, and we've talked about, you know, stuff like that with like social media, how to sift through those messages. And I think at some point you realize sometimes you just have to avoid certain messages too. And you know, I do wish that our society really did, you know, put health first, but I think that that's at direct odds with a lot of advertising and other things that kind of make the United States the way it is
Mm-hmm.
today, and it's good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, to use the Buddha's definition, you know, Buddha's often referred to as a physician, and to use the Buddha's definition of health, desiring things is the fundamental manifestation of unhealthiness.
Yeah,
So, like, there's a very real way in which, from a Buddhist point of view, advertising is sickness. It's like a virus. It causes you to be ill by creating desire. And there are all kinds of ways we do that to each other in a society too. I mean, it's the very idea of a person as a consumer is an inherently unhealthy construction of what a person is. Being healthy isn't something like, that's not a mysterious objective to people. They want to be healthy. We all want to be healthy. It's just a definition of health that is misplaced and misconstrued.
is the desire to be healthy part
Mm.
of the problem?
Right. Well, I mean, the way it's so tricky to talk about, right? But you don't. It's not the, and I don't want to get sectarian about this, but like the extinction of desire is not actually the bodhisattva path, right? Like that's the arhat path.
Yeah,
That's the nirvana path. That's the Theravada approach, is first extinguish all desire and then health will arise naturally. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but I am saying that there is another way, which
Yeah.
is orient your desire toward the health of all beings and maintain that perspective of health. That is the thing we're saying that we cultivate, for example, in Zazen. And the holistic picture of the health of the whole world system will suggest skillful and unskillful things to do, things that will increase health or decrease health for you or for other beings. And the health of the system could be measured by how much of that you're solely responsible for and how much of that you can rely on other people for. So it's like the more we take care of each other, the healthier we're able to be, because we don't have to do it all ourselves, and we are able to get sick and get better inside of a healthy relation to others and ourselves. That the idea that you have to be a self-contained perfect human being in excellent health in a performance-based sense is not what we mean. What we mean is like health is a society where people who are not well are taken care of.
There's a way of thinking about people with disabilities, and it's not that there's anything wrong with them, but that everything else isn't structured in a way for them to succeed. And you find that when people with disabilities are given the accommodations that they need, that their disability isn't even a problem anymore.
Householders is a production of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Silent Thunder Order. Find us on the web at aszc.org.
Our Sangha depends on your support. You can donate by PayPal to donate at storder.org. Gasho.